Okay, hey, this is going to be a quick run-through, very, very fast run-through, and this is mainly a test. We're going to do a little run-through of the exam and to see what you guys did and how it went and what are the answers. And so what I want to do is really look at the concepts involved because this has been, a tricky exam. It covered a couple of big topics for us, which is array and array list. And so there are some major points that we want to talk about. So I'm going to run through it, and I'm going to go through each question by question, talk about what's the, what are the main issues, and then we'll go from there. So let's do question one. Question one, this question was about testing to see if you knew about constructors and what happens when there's no constructor in the class. And in this one, there was no constructor, but if you look at this point here, mod 2.b.5, and I'll try and draw my pen around here. Let's see, around here. There is basically a when there's no constructor written, Java will provide one, right? And no argument constructor. So you don't have to really worry if there isn't one there. So this is how this question will go. Now, basically, so let me turn your attention now to the let's see. So let's go to the question. As you see here, we have the question here. The options are which describes why an error occurs. So it's not that it doesn't have a defined constructor, because that's not a problem, okay, by itself. And that's what this question is really testing, if you knew that, because most people would probably say this. The actual problem with this one is that if you see here, we have a private method here, answer. And when we try and use that from another class, that is not allowed. You are not allowed to use that method from another class. It's a private method. So only methods within alpha can use that. And that's why that isn't the right answer. Okay, question two. This one's a slightly different one. So here we've got another class declaration, and it's saying we have to try and replace this, and it's basically build a constructor using this. Okay, so what is the question two asking for? Well, question two is asking for us to look at how to make a constructor, basically. So what you want is to make sure that it's the same name and you're using the correct inputs for your constructor. All right, so let's consider our process here, which we have the process of looking for the constructor. Okay, so which constructor works? Well, we're looking for an int, right? So the constructor should be an int and a double. Okay, and the only answer that gives us an int and a double is this one. Int there, double there. This is nothing because it's a definition. That's something you'd use to define the constructor. We're trying to use the constructor. And here, we don't need int. We don't need equal signs. Okay, that's empty, and that's double and int. So that's wrong. Okay, question three. Let's go back to question three. All right. So question three requires us to look at and there's some examples of what we're looking for there. Question three is slightly different. So question three, static variables belong to the class. So this is testing your knowledge of static variables. Static variables are basically variables which exist in the class, and so they're shared. It's a variable that's shared by all of the objects of the class. Regular variables, or what we call instance variables, are within the object itself. So the class makes a different object. The object is here, and basically the you know, like each one might be different, right? So you might have it there, you might have it there. X is different for each object. A static variable, Y, would exist in the class, and so if this object updated the Y, then this other object would see that, and it could also update it. So it's like they can all have access to update it. So what we're doing here with this question is we're going to be looking at the question on how this works. So in this question we have X, which is just a standard instance variable, and we have a Y, which is a static variable. When we run the constructor, Y will get updated. So each time you run the constructor, Y is updated. So here it's saying what's the resulting code, and we're going to we make this 10, we make 20, we make 30. Okay. So these are three different objects being made. Each time Y gets plus plus, right? Because every time we make the object, it gets plus plus. Now increments will be adding 1 to Y, and increment by a number will add that number to Y, and get Y will just return Y. So let's see what happens here. We increment, so now Y would be 4. We increment Y 10, so we're adding 10 to Y, now it's 14. And then we're printing out Y, basically, using the get Y. So the right answer would be 14. So we're basically saying that this value is shared. Okay, next one, question 4, incel, class and ToString. All right, so this is testing your knowledge of ToString, which is a way to, basically every single class has a ToString. It's kind of built in from the right at the top level, a class has a ToString. And what it does is it's meant to be that when you try and print out that class, it's going to look for this ToString method and say, oh, do you have a ToString method? It might help me. It's like a public relations department of the class. It's like, oh yeah, here, this is all about me. So you can write your own ToString method, which will overwrite the built-in version. If you want to just display the class however you want, you're going to write it. It will overwrite the built-in one. So this question is all about that. Let's take a look. Okay, so let's get in here, question 4. Okay, so here we have a ToString method which is in a class incel, and this one is saying we got a space and my stored value. So it's printing the instance variable here, which is a private, but when we run ToString, well, it can access that because it's within the class. So let's see, get value. Now, get value will return the value as an integer, and this one will just return as a string. So let's see, we have a declaration here. Which of these statements can be used? So either we run get value. Now, get value is public, yes, so that's fine. My stored value. Now this is accessing the variable directly. Can we do that? No, we can't. It's a private variable. You're not allowed to do that. You can't just access the variable directly. It's private. So no, 2 will not work. So let's remove everything that's 2. So that's 2. That's got 2 in it. So we've just taken out like 2 of these things here, okay? And let's remove the one that doesn't have 1 because we knew that 1 worked, so that one is also. So now our choices are between E and A. So let's look at number 3. Print M. If you run print M, it'll print the object M, and what it will do is look for the ToString method, and it will print this out. So we'll call this thing. So yeah, printing M, print the object is fine. It'll search for its ToString method and it will work. Okay? So our answer would be 1 and 3. Alright, so let's do number 5. Okay, so question 5. Alright, so this one is going to be using some Boolean algebra, some logical operators, and it's going to try and, you have to try and do an evaluation. Test average and 4 assignments, okay? So here's where we've got to put some Boolean statements together. All right, so let's go to the question. All right, transition question. Okay, so the question is, we have these instance variables, and this is what is not shown is passing. All right, so let's see if we can define this problem here. A student can pass the course if at least one of the conditions is met. So either this one or this one is true. And I say or because that should give you a clue that we need an or, right? So that's one way that you could do this, is to put an or between these two statements. Test average greater than or equal to 90. Okay, this kind of thing. Test average greater than or equal to 90. That's what we're looking for. Now, so either this is true or this is true. All right, so this one is test average greater than or equal to 75 and has 4 completed assignments. At least 4. So here, greater than or equal to 75, 4 completed assignments. So in this code here, if this is true, this will run and it will return true. So yes, the student will pass. If not, well, it'll try this test. And this test is true, it'll return true. And if this is not true and that's not true, it won't return true, therefore it will return false. This code could work to give us that or option. Either one of them could be true. Let's look at 2. Will that work? Well, we start out with false. Pass is a variable, a Boolean variable. And same kind of thing again as this previous one, except all it does is updates pass to be true instead of just returning true. And then at the end, it will return pass. So it's kind of almost identical to this one, except it uses a variable for this value of true. That's cool too. And this one here is basically the same statements, but with an or in between. And that's the key here. Or is what we're doing. We're saying either this is true or this is true. So that will work as well. We're returning the result. And this statement will end up being a true or a false, and we'll return that. So all of these work. Ba-dang. 1, 2, and 3. Right? So what we're actually doing here is allowing for the Boolean statement to work. Question 6. Okay. Now, so the next few questions are talking about going through arrays. And the key with going through arrays is there are certain algorithms which you'll get to know. If you do enough practice with them, they'll become pretty standard. Like you'll say, if I need an algorithm to do this, this is doing this. There's not only so many things we need to do with arrays, and generally speaking, you know, like after a while you get to know them all, right? So we're kind of, the key is here, we're saying something's going to be true, or something's going to be true here. What is going to cause this loop to stop? And that's the key here, right? So basically, why would this loop stop? Right? And what's k going to be at that point? K is going to keep adding as long as this loop goes until it stops. So what's going to make it stop? Well, we've got an and in the middle, so if either one of these statements is false, the loop was going to stop. So either k becomes less than the sequence length, the length of the array, or the value before k is less than the value at k, right? So k is the index. If the value to the left is less than the value at that index position, right? So really, it's basically saying if this value is lower than this value, right, then we'll quit as well. So let's go to our question and see how it looks on the actual question there. So it's saying here, here's the full code. We've got this array, And this, it kind of gives you a clue here as well, is len increasing. So we're actually looking for numbers that are increasing. Okay? So if it's saying while these two things are true, so while the left one is lower than the right one, and we're not yet at the end of the array, keep going, right? So basically what we're doing is we're saying that we'll quit when either we get to the end or we get a value which is bigger than the other. Now this is AND. They don't both have to be true. Only one of them, right? One of them, like, so if this was the opposite and that turned out to be false, so for example, if it was equal to the length, this would fail and this would quit, right? So what we're looking for is the quit thing, and it's either that one or that one would be true. So if this was true, then I think this is the answer actually. Looks like it's right. So basically what we're doing is we're finding when this is false, this will be false when k equals to sequence the length or greater, right? So you can see here, there's only three options here that's true here, right? Like there. So you minimize it to these three answers, right? The AND one, no, right? So it's either this one or this one, and we're looking for a case where, well, it could be not just equal to, but it could be greater than, right? Not just equal, greater than or equal to will make this side fail. All right. Next question. All right, so this question 7 is we're traversing an array. Again, we're going through the array, and we have to use indexes, right? And so this is just part of the going through arrays. You need to use indexes. Now, where it gets complicated is when you have two loops here. And as you see here, this question is about sorting. So if you've studied the sorting algorithms, and we're only studying 2 in this course, but if you studied them, you should kind of recognize them by now and what they do. Okay? So let me see if it looks familiar to you. I mean, do you recognize what kind of sort it is? I hope you do. But let's go back into some history here because we've looked at this kind of thing before. Selection sort. We have different things happening here. We have a starting value, right? We start at a value and we look forward to find the smallest value in the rest of the array, right? If we find a smaller value than our starting value, then we're going to swap it, right? So this is the if part. If we find that it's smaller, right, then we're going to swap it over. Okay? And then we do a swap, and basically it ends up putting everything in order, right? So this is the key to the question, is that knowing the different parts of how the sort works. Yeah? So it's kind of a way to say we're keeping track of the minimum. Now this looks kind of, I don't know about you, but I look at this as being like, maybe that's around the wrong way. That seems like it should be less than. If we find a value that's less than the minimum value that we've been keeping track of, then let's update the minimum value. So I believe that's an incorrect thing. That should be less than. Okay? But anyway, the point is that we are moving forward in 2 loops. One is the outside loop. It's going through the array bit by bit. The other loop is running each time, and it's checking to find the minimum value, right, of the remaining values. Okay, so let's go back to what question 7 is doing, okay? And this will be the last question for this part. Question 7 is saying, okay, look at this sorting method, right? It sorts into ascending order. Now, how do we change the code here to change into descending order so that it's going down instead of up? The way to do it is when it's checking here, this is the key, is like we're looking for the smallest value right now. If we find a minimum value, right, we're going to find the minimum value. Changing this part is this is the area where it's checking to see bigger or smaller, right? So the key here is to find the one that we can replace. Now, this code here is the swapping code. There's no issue with swapping, right? Swapping is not part of checking greater or less than. Okay, so this is the key, is that the swapping part is not the problem, so 2 is out. Let's remove anything with 2. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be that. Wow, we've removed 3 already. It's 50-50 now. So just by identifying the swapping code, you've made it now 50-50. This part is the looping part. Now this is just going to go backwards through the array. So this is going to change it so that it's going backwards, starting at the end and going backwards. And then here is looking for... So now, if we go backwards, that may help, right? Because now our value that we're swapping is that we're finding the biggest value. Sorry, we're finding the smallest value here, and we're moving it. In the end, we're going to swap it to the end of the array, not the start. So that could work. And this one changes the test, so that could work too. So let's see, I think if we check their answer, we're finding that it's 1 and 3. And so that's why both of these could work. Change the test and change the direction. Okay, I'll do the rest in another video.